Hello world! Curses of madness be upon you all for live fighters. With the final chapter of the first ship coming up very soon, I wanted to take a quick look at some of the mask charms that have been released with Apex Legends Season 6, as I think they contain a few hints at hidden character motivations and potentially even some future storylines. And we're going to start with the most egregious example, the masks themselves, which very clearly tie back to Ash's death mask and her overall involvement in the current story. Each mask seems to represent one of the legends, perhaps to show the relevance of Ash to their current situation, or even to suggest that Ash is destined to become a legend herself. On top of that, the final comic chapter comes with a mask that seems to be based on Ash visually, and given its name, Measure of Truth, I think it really has to be hers, as this resonates pretty strongly with the current story and the uncertain truth of her circumstances, and her long-standing character trait of seeking the true measure of others. I've said enough about Ash already. I've obviously fallen for her quite like Pathy has, so let's move on to another character that I won't stop bringing up, Wraith, or more specifically, Voidwalker. Given what seems to be Wraith's mask, the one called Mastermind, it does just make me wonder if this is less of a reference to Wraith's multi-dimensional perception, and more reference to an overarching influence or the cause of some greater incident, a mastermind, as I've hypothesized Voidwalker to be a few times already. If her and Blisk are in cahoots, then we could see the development of some pretty distinct and sympathetic antagonists to really put a face to the Syndicate, or even see them emerge as like rebellious supporting characters to the Legends and their plights against the greater powers that be. And from there, there's one final really distinct mask that I want to take a look at. And while this one could simply be a representation of the character, just as the previous two might be, Mirage's Fall Guy mask definitely sets a tone. Like, it's kind of silly, it might even be a joke or a fourth wall break, you know, like as if Mirage drew that on there himself, but the almost like creepy visual details drawn on the mask and the multiple ways you can interpret its title really make me think this is setting us up for a fall down the line. With a fall guy being someone who is often the butt of a joke, the title certainly fits anyway, but given its more common usage for a person who is made to take the blame for the actions of others, I think that this, on top of the crossed out eyes and the sort of monstrous fangs, is a sign that Mirage is going to be set up as a villain in some capacity in the future. Whether he's implied to be the cause of an awful crime, or to have betrayed the trust of the other Legends, I think this will most likely be like a false belief or an act of scapegoating, or if it is the truth, then I imagine we'll come to empathise with why he has done so given time. My favourite theory here is that Mila's warnings about someone watching from the inside actually ties back to Mirage, and Mirage has been working closely with the Syndicate to meet his own goals of turning his mother into a simulacrum so as to alleviate her memory loss. That's sort of an entire other video on its own, although I don't really think it needs much more explaining than that, right? The man on the inside could of course be Blisk. Both he and Mirage are heavily involved in the first ship, as we've seen, but it could be that Mila is pulling the wool over all of our eyes here, and that is a video that warrants its own discussion. Whoever the mole is doesn't exactly have to tie into Mirage's Fall Guy mask, but you can see the parallels at least. But with that, those are the only specifics I really wanted to highlight about the mask charms. Although it is a little odd to me that Gibby and Lifeline don't have their own masks yet, and they're not releasing in this first half of Season 6, which makes me wonder how they then release them in the latter half if there's no quest to work with, which maybe there is another quest or another comic coming, and whether there is or not, why are Gibby and Lifeline sort of separated out from everybody else? Given, say, Lifeline and Octane's attachments to Samathi, and the hopefully upcoming Olympus map for Season 7, I'd have thought to separate those two off from the rest instead. Or to maybe do Ash and perhaps Blisk as masks after all the actual Legends, and have the actual Legends in the first half, and then the supporting cast in the second half, or then you could even drop something like Big Sister's mask alongside Ash's to make the focus on supporting characters a bit even clearer. Like, ultimately the order that the masks have released in puzzles me a little, and I wonder if there is anything actually behind it. Perhaps after the final chapter it'll all make a bit more sense, and so I hope you'll join me in reading it early this coming week, and leaving your ideas about the masks down below. Thanks for staying with me, friends. I hope you enjoyed this sort of shorter style of video. I've been Euclidean Vision, the emotional support. Take care of yourselves out there, and may the glorious light of Beskil shine within you. Bye bye.